Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Sunday at 10:28. So yeah, I've been knee deep in rewatching for the billionth time my favorite series of all time, and that is True Detective. I was super excited with this idea and prospect of doing this show, just because I was like, well, I've done this bad boy right here. Beautiful packaging. I picked this up. This is the entire first season of True Detective, and it's just awesome. It's got again, like I said, this is like the only series that I feel that I can watch right through. I pretty much watched the entire thing last night. I got a couple more episodes to the stunning conclusion to the series. I'm going to finish that up tonight. Again, for the billionth time, I've watched this show, and this is a beautiful package. I got this at Bull Moose quite a few years ago now, down in Brunswick, Maine, which is a really awesome shop. It's a smaller shop. Each Bull Moose is definitely uniquely different. That you would think that it would be more or less the same, but each one has its own kind of vibe. Some are bigger than others, and some have more of a movie selection, if you will, and then some have more of a music selection. And the same could be said for books and things like that. So, but I was super pumped when I bought this, and it's a beautiful. It looks so amazing and gorgeous on Blu-ray. It's just incredible. So the thing that I'm doing now that's different with this, I think this is my second dive into my favorite television show of all time. I did last year, and I think the year before, I did two different shows about True Detective. I think I did one when I first more or less bought this collection, and it was a couple of years ago, and then later on I did another kind of recap. Me watching it yet again and wanting to give even more of an overview of this show. But I had this idea a few days ago which I haven't done before, and I don't go into that kind of detail in the other videos, where I was going to go into each, basically each video, or I should say, each episode. And again, this is about True Detective. The whole season one, is probably about 6 hours. It's not. I mean, I'm gonna finish it up tonight, and again, it like breezes right through. And I was watching it. I watched a lot last night, and I was just thinking to myself, wow, why is this so good? And I just think it's, for me, it's personally, it's really the pacing, and it's got such a literary sense and vibe to it. I mean, it's like curling up with a really great book, and it's got this. I'm a big fan of kind of the slow burn method of storytelling. I like I like when things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love things. I love music or movies where things kind of come out all guns blazing. But I like it when there's a lot of space and a lot of room to kind of slowly let the story seep into you. It's like putting on a really nice blanket or a nice coat. You want to let it fit. You want to, slowly put yourself into it, and then you allow the comfort. If it fits well, you want to allow that comfort to kind of, you know, um, envelop you. And I feel like that's the thing that, for me, why I love this show. I mean, there's so many reasons, but I think it's because of the pacing. The pacing is just so damn good. So today's show is going to be on episode two. And again, we get such a brilliant introduction to this entire show through season one. the premise of this is the the head of the department that is in charge of these murders, Casada, who is essentially Russ's boss and Marty's boss, played by the brilliant Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. There's a heightened sense of terror that is slowly, sweeping into the state of Louisiana where the show takes place, and so the FBI steps in and because the crimes or the main crime has this quote unquote occult or satanic trapping to it. The FBI, the governor of Louisiana, decides to bring in the FBI and put together this task force that is their specialty is about these like satanic crimes and whatnot, and it harkens back to, of course, the infamous days in the mid to late 80s, the Satanic Panic. So it kind of plays a little bit on that. And of course, the story, you know, is it's kind of set in this Bible Belt. So you have a lot of very conservative Christians and people who really believe in these ridiculous notions of the supernatural. So it's very interesting, and it's about their struggle, Rust's struggle, because they are starting to slowly get some leads into this case, Rust and Marty, and they are slowly, getting these clues, but they're realizing that they really have to dig deep, and that this is, in this episode, in episode 2, they allude and they go into the idea that this is probably not the only crime that has happened, and that these murders, the main case as to what started the whole investigation, is really just possible. Well, they really go into the notion or idea that this isn't the only crime. This isn't like some kind of isolated incident, and that there's possibly a bunch of other murders and various other things that are kind of tied to this case. And Russ, being the brilliant detective that he is, he decides, and he really believes wholeheartedly that these are going to continue. These crimes are going to continue, and that this is the perpetrator is this incredibly calculated psycho psychopath or calculated killer, and that there is more than meets the eye. So that the centerpiece on this episode, in episode 2, is where they are, at odds with Casada, their boss, about trying to still hold on to this case and not let this task force come in, and basically this FBI task force basically come in and you kind of usurp their investigation. And it's just brilliant. The other thing that's so awesome about this episode is it's slowly, you really start getting a sense of the darkness of these two characters. Nobody nobody in True Detective is squeaky clean. I always feel like this show has a real kind of film noir vibe of or a little bit of like the sense of the anti-hero, where everybody's got some darkness and everybody's got some light in them, and there isn't necessarily a good guy or a bad guy, the typical kind of narrative that we are accustomed to. And I love that this show has takes such a great deep dive into the characterization, and we get a real big sense of all of the baggage and terrible things that our main one of our main characters, Marty, who is played by Woody Harrelson, where he is this, he is just kind of an awful person, and he is, cheating on his wife, and is so self-absorbed and so narcissistic, and is obviously a pretty disturbed individual. And I love, and as well as, with we get into the trauma of also Rust's past, where we learn that his he was married at one point and his daughter died, and so we get a real big sense of, all of the darkness that both of these characters, all of the darkness that is enveloping their lives, or from their past, and continues to, erode on their lives. And I love that, that juxtaposition of, you know of they, some of these characters are doing things that are very questionable and that are kind of awful and terrible, especially around Marty's character. But you also have empathy towards them. That's the thing I find so fascinating. And they are not your stereotypical good guys, if you will. Extreme baggage, and this episode does such a great job of really unpacking those things. And again, that's the testimony to the amazing writing of the show. And again, it's all attributed to the brilliant writing, and all coming from the brilliant mind of Nick Pizzolatto, who was the creator of True Detective. Just amazing. It's one of the best characterizations. It's and the level of suspense in this series is unlike anything else. Like, you can just feel the darkness in every frame of this show. And I love that, I love that notion or idea of where, you know, you can develop like a sense of where you care about the characters, even though they're doing some kind of awful things, and they're to a degree, well, like, I think in an instance like with Marty, the interesting thing with both characters, Marty played by Woody Harrelson, with him, he is, I feel like he is, truly a lost soul, if you will. He does not know who he is, and he doesn't have any sense of, any kind of personal moral fiber, and he's, a bastard to his family, he's a bastard to his wife, and he's completely self-absorbed and narcissistic. But yet he does have this sense of justice, and and he's, very good at being a detective, and he does have a sense of loyalty to a degree to at least, what he feels his badge represents, or even to that, for that matter, you start seeing a sense of his, to a degree, his loyalty to his partner, Rust. Even though, as the episodes evolve, you see what happens. You see all of these things that happen between these characters, of where they are, about to rip themselves, about to rip that relationship apart. But you sense that he does have some kind of a code, some kind of ethical code to a degree. But he clearly doesn't know himself as a character, as a human being. He's really lost, and he's really, well, fucked up. And with Rust, who is played by Matthew McConaughey, even though he is so misanthropic, but I feel so aligned with, personally, I feel so aligned on his views of, basically how, how the, how organized religion basically functions in our world, or in our society, and why, I think it provides a lot of good things, but there are so many negative things around it. And I think he completely embodies, kind of that stance, or really taking a deep examination as to why it functions the way it does. Why do people have this insatiable need to congregate with other, like-minded individuals? But the difference between both characters, I think, is with Rust. He really really knows himself. He is completely secure in himself as a man, and he has this really intense kind of personal ethical code, and I think so. That's a real interesting combination with these two characters, and they do particularly this episode two. That you really start seeing, you know, it's a little bit of a deeper dive into, the personal lives of these two detectives, and you start getting a sense of, all of the issues that they have, and it's amazing. So yeah, so stay tuned for the next episode, which will be the next Film Fanatic show, which will be episode 3. Peace.